new law will go into effect this week that could impact many renters here in the city. The City Council approved the Fairness in Apartment Rental Expenses Act, or FAIR Act, last year. It goes into effect on Wednesday. This law prohibits landlords from charging tenants broker fees. Instead, the person who hires a broker pays those fees. Also, under this new law, all fees that a tenant pays must be disclosed in rental listings and agreements. Violators of the FAIR Act can face penalties of up to $1,000 for the first violation, $2,000 for subsequent violations. The real estate site Street Easy just released a new report on the possible impact the FAIR Act will have on the rental market in the city. Joining us now is Kenny Lee. He is an economist with Street Easy. Great to see you, Kenny. Great to be with you this morning. We really do appreciate it. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, Kenny, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the highlights from this report. Again, the possible impact from the FAIR Act on the rental market. We'll start with upfront costs will be substantially lower. That's what your report found. Also, rents are not likely to increase significantly beyond market trends. Also in this report, property managers are expected to absorb much of the broker fees. And then also, you're also saying in this report that the rental brokers will continue to provide valuable services for property managers. So, okay, let's start with that first one there, the lower upfront cost. That's a big one. Talk to us about that. What exactly, much will the upfront cost be lowered?
As you mentioned, the FAIR Act requires that the hiring party covers the cost of a rental broker in New York City. Oftentimes, the biggest component of the upfront cost is actually the broker fee. Now, after taking effect, the FAIR Act will be a big change for renters looking for their next home in New York. Now, they stand to save nearly 42% on average in upfront costs. This can be a really game changer for so many renters. The average amount of cash needed to sign a lease in New York City averaged $13,000 this year. That's nearly 17% of the median household income. The FAIR Act will substantially lower this enormous financial burden on renters.
And talk to us about rents not likely to increase beyond market rates. Tell us more about that.
It's important to note that the recent data suggests that any rent increases associated with bringing the leasing activity in-house or compensating the brokers themselves will be aligned with broader market trends. The average annual increases for properties that already dropped a broker fee ahead of the FAIR Act was around 5.3% this April. Again, that's really not that far off from 4.6% that the rest of the market saw in April.
And property managers, they'll basically are expected to absorb most of the broker fees most of the time.
Now, it's important to remember that rents are primarily set by supply and demand in the rental market, in addition to landlord expenses. Now, the data really confirms this. Traditionally, rentals that charge broker fee have been a little less expensive than the rest of the market. However, the data suggests that during the pandemic, the rentals that didn't charge tenants a fee was actually cheaper than 1.7%. Even when the competition was really tough in 2022, no-fee rentals were only more expensive compared to the rest of the market by about 6%, far below 12 to 15% of the broker fee that would have been baked into the base rent. Now, this really suggests that at the end of the day, demand and supply dynamics will prevail over the landlord's expenses themselves.
And Kenny, I know there's been concerns about, rental brokers will no longer basically be necessary, but your report finds the opposite, that they'll still continue to provide important services to landlords.
That's right. What the data tells me is that property managers will still continue to work with agents. This year, 57% of the rentals that did not charge tenants a fee were still represented by brokers. Even during the pandemic, 80% of the no-fee rentals were actually still represented by brokers. Now, this is really because for so many landlords, brokers continue to provide valuable and essential services, and this will continue on even after the FAIR Act. The FAIR Act doesn't really change the business model for both rental brokers and property managers themselves.
And Kenny, I do want to point out the Real Estate Board of New York is challenging the law in federal court. The group is a trade association that advocates on policy changes in the real estate industry. It's still waiting for the judge in the case to make a decision to possibly prevent the law from going into effect. Now, in a statement, a spokesperson from the Real Estate Board telling New York One the FAIR Act is constitutionally flawed on multiple accounts. Despite the rhetoric, the FAIR Act will only lead to higher rents and deprive hardworking rental agents from making a living, a lose-lose for all New Yorkers. But Kenny, in a nutshell, you guys say just the opposite. This will really benefit the entire rental community, landlords, brokers, and most importantly, of course, people who are looking for apartments. You mentioned those lower upfront costs. By lowering those costs, that will also make it easier for people who maybe have been sitting on the sidelines, not been able to find an apartment because they can't afford those costs, and now they might be able to.
At the end of the day, everyone, including brokers, renters, property managers, all want to see a city where it's easier and more affordable to move. Now, the FAIR Act will really help us get there. It is a big win for renters in New York City. For property managers and rental brokers, the business will still go on. Brokers will continue to provide valuable services for the landlord, and the landlord will also have a easier time being connected to tenants who are qualified for their vacant units. With additional transparency, that job will be much easier for both tenants, landlords, as well as rental brokers.
All right, and our viewers can get much more on all this by heading to streeteasy.com. Kenny Lee, great to have you with us this morning. Always great to speak with you. Really do appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for watching our YouTube channel. Let Spectrum News be your resource for balanced, in-depth political coverage, and click the subscribe button right here. You can also download our app or watch us on TV to learn more about the candidates, where they stand on the issues, and more. We'll see you then.